Well, it is the end of an era. It is 2023. It is December. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the future of the Prime People podcast. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I'm your host, Justin Conico. I have been running the Prime People podcast since 2014, and it is over for this year. So we're actually going to talk about the evolution of the podcast, a little bit about the history of it, how we started the podcast, and we've been heavy in production for 2024. There's some exciting things coming down the pipeline, and as part of the Prime Nation, I want to share them with you. Start at the very, very beginning. So why did I start the Prime People podcast? Initially, I started it because I thought there were some incredible people in our community that I really wanted to showcase on our platform. Some of them I had done business with. Some of them were business owners that were doing really cool things in the health space. So I remember Tommy Caldwell, I believe, was one of the very first guests we had on. We also had Growing Chefs on. They actually took the L'Auberge du Petit Prince, which was an incredible restaurant in OEV, so Old East Village in London, Ontario, and they literally turned it into a culinary school for children. So the Growing Chefs episode that we did of the Prime People, they literally talked about how important it was to get your kids involved in understanding where their food came from, the actual preparation of it, and develop a passion for cooking. And what's cool is as kids developed passion for cooking, they would develop skill sets for life. They would be closer with their families. And that's really the end game of why we shot that episode. And then we went on, and we started interviewing all kinds of different people. Obviously, I'm in the real estate space, so we were bringing on a lot of experts in the real estate space. If I go through the list of some of our top episodes, the number one episode obviously was From Zero to Mega $1 Million Listing Hero, a masterclass with Ryan Serhant. As many of you know, Ryan is a personal mentor of mine. Met him in 2018. That podcast was actually the behind the scenes video footage of our conversation. And man, he gave the goods. So if you want to watch that replay, you can definitely go check out that episode. I also had Darren Voros on, who is a multifamily real estate investing expert. And Darren came on to talk about how to take, duplex properties, turn them into fourplexes. Now he's doing apartment buildings. And we really dug in and talked about the nitty gritty of how to start a real estate investing business. And, when we would talk to people on the Prime People podcast, it wasn't a pitch. It wasn't, hey, work with Darren and buy his course and this, that, or the other. It was like the nuts and bolts, nitty gritty. Hey, Darren, how did you get started? Where are you at now? Where are you going? What's really cool is Darren's still a friend of the Prime People podcast and is doing incredible things now. He's all over North America running some pretty cool masterminds. And he's somebody that we still have access to and we can do some new things with. And that's where we're heading with the Prime People podcast. And I'm so excited about this. I'm going to share with you in a couple minutes some of the ideas and episodes that we've already shot that are coming out in 2024. But if you're here for the Prime People podcast, you're curious about the future, smash that subscribe button because it is going to live on this channel. We have a lot of clarity on where we're going with this, and we want you to be a part of it more than anything. If you've ever heard an episode of the Prime People podcast, let me know in the comments if there's any that ever stuck out with you. Now is a time to chat about it. So there's a bunch of you here. I see you hanging out on the live stream. Jump in the comments. Let me know who you are, where you're from. If you've never listened to the Prime People podcast, I'd love for your input as well. Why do you listen to podcasts? What type of podcasts are you looking for? Because the entire time we've been building this channel and the podcast, we've done it based on feedback that we get from you all. And that's some of the changes that we've made. Another top episode actually that we had was Dominating Local Search with Derek Bixler. So we had Ryan Serhant on, then we had Darren, and Derek Bixler came on and talked about Google My Business. And Derek's episode was very tactical. He's talking about fixing your Google profile. He's talking about how reviews matter and getting to the nitty gritty. So I'm assuming that episode spoke to somebody that's like, you know what, I got to get my Google My Business in order. I know it's important. And that's why we shot that episode. We also did Tom Story came on the podcast to talk primarily about YouTube. Now, Tom Story is a friend of the Prime Nation and is killing it in Toronto. He's featured on all the news channels and running YouTube courses on BAMX. But when he did this episode, it wasn't talking to consumers. If you watch his videos does on YouTube, a lot of them are focused around real estate market intelligence, converting buyers and sellers to work with their team, which makes perfect sense. Our Prime channel exists for the same reason. But this episode was really cool because he came on and talked about the nuts and bolts, the camera, the lighting, how he actually preps for his videos, when he realized that YouTube was a great platform that he wanted to focus on. And I think why the Prime People podcast has mattered so much to me over the last, almost 10 years was every single guest I had I would have had those conversations whether the cameras were on or off. I'm innately curious. I don't mind putting my ego aside and talking to people that are better at me than certain things, trying to find out, what was the roadmap of how they got there? What did they learn along the way that might save me some time? But I also never want to hoard the information or keep it to myself, because I feel like it would help a lot of other people out there. And that's always been the goal, is create a community of people that are all building really cool things. I always make the comparison to fishing. If I want to learn to fish, I go learn from a fishing guide who's going to teach me how to cast and show me a couple spots where I'm probably going to catch some fish. But eventually I got to go out and I got to fish on my own and find my own spots. But then as you develop a cadence and the ability to find your own fishing holes, you end up finding other people and you take them to your fishing holes. And all of a sudden you're teaching other people and giving them a leg up in the industry. And obviously real estate focused, that's what I do as my day job. I really wanted to do that for the real estate community and give them that helping hand that I got from so many people. And when I look at the stats and where people are listening to these episodes from, it absolutely blows my mind. It's bigger than I ever thought possible. It's led to more business than I ever thought possible. But more than that, it's led to more relationships than I ever thought possible. Thank you, Jeff Moffitt. I see you, brother. Jeff's a great friend as well. And, he's somebody that espouses the same virtues. We want to build this community together, and it really, really matters. Anna Moscadelli, again, I've done legit business with Anna. We've had a wonderful time. We stuck one of the trickiest deals together of all time, and it all had to do with a ceiling fan and a light. So I thank you very, very much, Anna. And I appreciate all the support. Anna, you've been very encouraging for the podcast and the channel as well. From both of you, I'd love to know, what is the type of content you want to see more of? We'll get to the big announcement in a couple seconds here as to the future of the Prime People podcast and a new show that we are launching. But I'm going to go through one more top episode. We had Kyle and Sarah come on the podcast and talk about retail commercial leasing in New York. And what was really cool about Kyle's episode was he really broke down, as a commercial retail leasing expert, how he approaches a niche business. Now, if you're not into commercial real estate, that's totally fine. But he talks about how he actually gets access to landlords that people have a hard time getting access to, how he creative problem solves for deal solution, and more than anything, how he's used social media to just rocket to the top of his industry in his territory. And that's what it's always been. So as we were chewing on the Prime People podcast and who are we talking to? What type of episodes are we putting out? I didn't want it to be just another real estate podcast, because that was never the intent. The idea was always to talk to entrepreneurs and business owners. And if I go back to, let me pull this up, my original prep was a document that I wrote, what do we do on this podcast? And it was, who are we interviewing? Who are the fans? What are the topics? And what are the fans following them for? Well, we're profiling people we learn from in communities that we play in. Sometimes the most amazing lessons can be learned from people in the most unique places. We truly believe we have access to some of the most incredible people on the planet, which is true. And that this podcast is all about sharing who they are, what they do, and how they got there. We profile people locally and internationally, and from an international superstars like Ryan Serhant to the hit of the TV show Income Property, Scott McGillivray, and many others. We open our network up to you. The sky's the limit in terms of information we've already gathered, so strap in and get ready for prime time. That was actually the name of the show before we called it Prime People. And these incredible minds cover topics such as becoming a successful entrepreneur with integrity and authenticity, social media marketing tips and tricks and strategy, lead generation and capture techniques from YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, so you can tell how old this is, podcasting, and more. Becoming influential in your marketplace, building a successful real estate business from the ground up, investing in real estate, leading trends that can be adapted across multiple industry, and changing your mindset when it comes to health, wellness, and what it actually means to be successful. So that was a document I wrote years ago. And that's what we've tracked the Prime People podcast against every week. When we select our guests, who we allow on the show, the collaborations that we do. And I've had guests in the past where some episodes are no longer up, because when you find out who people are through proximity, being around other people, or if something didn't actually come across as true, the research team found something out after the fact, or somebody within the community highlighted something that I need to know. The integrity of the show actually matters a lot to me. The integrity of my relationships matter a lot to me. So we have taken down past episodes. Not worried about view count. I'm not worried about subscriber count. I'm just worried about putting forth the most quality content I possibly can. So where are we going in 2024? So we are taking a sabbatical for the Christmas holidays. So we are going to respect the fact that our primary goal is, if I think of the order of importance in my life, the first would be to be a faithful follower of Christ. I am a believer. I want to be the man that he made me to be. So that's my number one. And it's being a great husband to Shannon, a great father to Faith, a great leader in my community, within my ecosystem, and just moving forward from that perspective, right? Faith, family, fitness, fun, finances. The evolution of the Prime People podcast is going to follow that. But who am I talking to? Who's my audience? Or am I just putting real estate content out to? If I'm talking to everybody, am I talking to nobody? These are all questions that I've had over the last 6 months that I've been just digging into, because I want this to matter. I don't want it to just be another podcast. I don't want you to feel like I'm selling you something, putting you down some pipeline to sell you some coaching program. I am not for sale. I am going to put out probably a merch brand of clothing next year that says not for sale, because I think a lot of people think, well, Justin, are you a life coach? Are you, doing trainings, and are you looking to recruit? Like it seems like I am with some of the content that I'm putting out there, especially in the thought leadership space, but I'm relationship driven. So as I'm thinking about being relationship driven, there's an idea that popped in our head for a new show. And this is a portion of the future of the Prime People podcast. So I was watching Comedians in Cars Drinking Coffee, and absolutely love that show. If you haven't seen it by Jerry Seinfeld, you need to check it out. So he loves cars. He's got tons of them. And what he does is he puts cameras in his car and he goes and picks up some incredible person that he knows. They grab coffee and they just hang out. And that show is not structured like this podcast at all. There's no intro. Hey, in this video, you're going to be watching ABC, right? Like the YouTube formula to keep people engaged and at least let them know what they're going to be watching. And it doesn't really have an end game. It's other than Jerry absolutely loves cars, hangs out with really cool people, and you get to just be a fly on the wall and feel like you're hanging out with them. That is going to be the future of the Prime People podcast. As much as we've been giving you access to our network, and when we do live episodes, we tell you, go and DM these people. Tell them you are on my show. Your level of access to my network is more than you can ever imagine if you just take the effort and actually send the message. We are launching a show, but I'm not Jerry Seinfeld. I don't own a stable of classic cars, although I have access to one. So if you want classic cars, I got you. I know a guy that's got one of the best classic car dealerships you can imagine. That was an idea in our mind. We're like, maybe we'll get a car for every guest and the YouTube channel for that. But no, let's let the main thing be the thing. Let's focus, people. What do I love? I absolutely love real estate. If you look at who I am, more than anything, I guess I'm probably a creator and a storyteller who happens to be an expert at real estate. So take Peter McKinnon, take Ryan Serhant, put them in a blender. That's what you get. We've found success by using storytelling, marketing, cinematography to really help our clients' properties stand out and find the right people. We try to create engaging, entertaining, and educational content in the real estate space, and obviously in the business space with this podcast. So when I say I like real estate, if Jerry Seinfeld's got cars, what do I got? I got estates. I like looking at real estate. Well, who do I know? I know real estate agents. So are you going to do like agents in cars drinking coffee? I'm like, well, no, definitely don't want to get sued. So probably not going to do that. But I know every agent out there is an entrepreneur. And I also know other entrepreneurs, because if I want to have guests on, like Ryan Serhant, Sean Cannell from Think Media, whose show I was just on, and Viper, who's the MC for vidIQ, Dara Leaves. I got tons of people on this wall I want to get on the show. Goggins, I'll get Tim Kennedy one day. And there's people that are on this wall that have been on my show. Well, they're all entrepreneurs. So estates, entrepreneurs, and Jerry Seinfeld drinks coffee. And I love the coffee shop setup on that show. Espressos. I drink a lot of espresso. So the Prime People podcast has a version of itself that already has 6 episodes in the bank. We are launching new episodes every single month. I'm really excited about this one. It is called Estates, Entrepreneurs, and Espressos. So we are actually getting out people. So not just Zoom calls, not just virtual. And I am bringing you to the people in my network that for the last couple of years a lot of them have been on virtually, some have come in studio, but I'm taking you to their actual environments. We're going to look at houses and properties and offices, seeing their actual setups, how they live. You're going to learn more about them than you ever thought possible, because the way that we're shooting the content is not structured. You're not being sold. You're not going to hear the same thing over and over and over like you hear on every single podcast. You are going to meet these people and really understand who they are, because I'm going to break bread with them. We're going to find the best local coffee shops you can imagine. That's the espressos portions. And we're going to dig into their true entrepreneurship. I couldn't be more excited about this, because obviously I do have a passion for real estate. So the estates piece, we did an episode, I'll tease you, with Mark Salerno in a $7.5 million property. We went to his office. We went to a wicked bakery in Kleinburg. I'm going back to that place with my family, my wife and daughter. I have to bring them there. Like, you've never seen a bakery like this before. But when I took the drive with Mark, he was negotiating a deal. We got to the house. I got an insight. Like, dude lost, I think, 75 pounds in a year. And he's just killing it on so many levels. He's so focused on what he wants to be in the industry. Like, I drew inspiration from that. And I hope that you will get to feel what I feel through the show that we're putting out. We are still going to do the Prime People podcast. So we are going to have virtual guests on, just with time constraints and something. So Thursdays 1 to 2 is when every episode is going to launch. We are working on, does the estates, entrepreneurs, and espressos live on a different channel and we put it here? Or is it a private show that we're launching on a separate channel? We're working through the dynamics of it. We'll make sure that you get access. We will make sure that you do not miss a beat. Our Prime Nation always gets first access to everything that we do. The best way to become part of our Prime Nation is just get on my mailing list. I'm dropping the link in the chat. It is justinconico.com/resources. I'll share the website so you can see it really quickly. I don't sell anything. I am not for sale. I have no interest in coaching or selling programs. I don't want to recruit you. I don't want to open an office in your area. My cup is very full. I just do this so that we can communicate directly. I respond to every email that comes to this email address. If you fill this out, you'll get access to all these free guides that I put out. Again, I don't sell anything. I just did these because I had the same questions over and over from this community. So I try and put out PDFs on a regular basis, telling you how I create content, how I time block, getting started with YouTube and storytelling, and so on and so forth. So go to that website if you want to check it out. Let me know your thoughts on the name of the episode. This whole channel has been run by the community, and I want it to continue to be so. So it's going to be called Estates, Entrepreneurs, and Espressos, and it's going to be just like Comedians in Cars Drinking Coffee with a little bit of a twist. Very excited about that. It is going to be part of the Prime People family of shows. This one is going to continue. I'd also like to know if you know anybody that you think would make a wicked guest on that show or this one. I would absolutely love to hear from you. My deepest gratitude for people that have been here, that have shared out the episodes, that are subscribed to the channel. I see all the metrics on the back end. It still surprises me every week because I don't feel like I'm smarter or more special than anybody else, but I do feel like I have an incredible community of people around me who have gotten me here. You are part of that. If you're not, become part of it. Hit the sub button, and I'm excited for a very, very bright future, and I'll catch you when we relaunch in January. See you for now.